Other than Eddie Brock, who all has Venom, the symbiote, been bonded to? Well, we did a dive, and here's a bunch of hosts, not all of them, that Venom has been attached to, so sit down, grab a drink, because here we go.
Peter Parker. This is where it all began. If not for Peter Parker rejecting the symbiote in the first place, Venom, as we know it, might not exist at all. Parker would first bond with the symbiote during the original Secret Wars. After Spider-Man's costume was ruined from battles with the villains, he was directed by Thor and the Hulk to a room at the hero's base where they informed him that a machine could read his thoughts and instantly fabricate any type of clothing. Choosing a machine that he believes to be the correct one, Spider-Man caused a black sphere to appear before him, which spread all over his body, dissolving the tattered old costume and covering him to form a new black and white costume. To Spider-Man's surprise, the costume would mimic street clothes and provide a seemingly inexhaustible and stronger supply of webbing. Unfortunately, he started to notice that the costume wasn't as innocent as he had believed. It would envelop Parker while he slept and go out into the night to fight crime, leaving Parker inexplicably exhausted every morning.
Parker had the costume examined by Reed Richards of Fantastic Four fame, who discovered that it was alive. And when Parker realized it was trying to permanently bond to his body, he rejected it and was subsequently contained by the Fantastic Four. Unfortunately for Spider-Man, the symbiote escaped, and with it, the knowledge of his secret identity and the secrets behind his powers. As a result, future Venoms display powers akin to those of its jilted host, and they're also immune to his spider sense. For a time, Anti-Venom was also able to negate Peter's powers, but that's been walked back since the events of Spider Island a few years ago.
Deadpool. One of the wackiest wielders of the alien symbiote would have to be the one and only Wade Winston Wilson, aka the Deadpool. In the brief time between Peter Parker rejecting it and Eddie Brock bonding with it, the symbiote found Deadpool and they teamed up to help the alien avoid some extraterrestrial bounty hunters. However, the symbiote hated the fact that Wade was repeatedly mistaken for Spider-Man, and Deadpool could do little to calm it down. When Wade denied the murderer symbiote the chance to take Spider-Man's life, it fled to find a host who hated Peter Parker as much as it did. But Wade left his mark on the symbiote, as some of its relative madness can be attributed to bonding with the fourth wall breaking merc with a mouth.
Eddie Brock. Now, you can't talk about Venom without talking about Eddie Brock. Born out of the grimdark, gritty late 80s, Venom would become one of the greatest villains of the 90s, acting as a dark reflection of Spider-Man, but also one of the most absolutely terrifying members of the generally colorful rogues gallery that Spider-Man has. The symbiote's love-hate relationship with Peter Parker played out in the ways that Venom interacted with Spider-Man, and despite their many battles, they would find themselves occasionally as allies. Eddie would have a tenuous relationship with heroism over the years, stemming from his sometimes very strict moral code, believing that Venom should protect the innocent. Unfortunately, that was fairly short-lived, and the symbiote always seemed to cause more problems than it could fix by way of its asexual reproduction, resulting in more symbiote-powered entities.
After separating from Venom, Eddie developed cancer and found himself in a downward spiral of religious paranoia, confusion, self-doubt, and the fear of imminent death. After his last act of murder and attempted suicide failed due to the intervention of his old foe Spider-Man, Eddie had a change of heart. Although he was still dying and plagued by hallucinations of the symbiote, Eddie aimed to turn his life around and make the best of his remaining days. But unfortunately, fate had other plans for Eddie. While working with the Feast, Food Emergency Aid Shelter and Training program alongside Peter's Aunt May, under the employ of Martin Lee, aka Mr. Negative, Lee's powers unexpectedly cured Eddie of his cancer and his venomous hallucinations. Believing his clean state of health is a miracle, Eddie's new lease on life turns for the worst when his past returns.
One day, the then current Venom, Mac Gargan, showed up at the Feast shelter looking for Spider-Man, Recognizing Brock, Gargan taunted the powerless Eddie about rejecting Venom and its power, but his bullying quickly turned to shock when the Venom symbiote attempted to return to Eddie Brock, causing an unexpected transformation to occur. Unbeknownst to anybody, Martin Lee's powers had caused the dormant remains of the symbiote in Eddie's blood to fuse with his white blood cells, and Venom's reappearance triggered the creation of an all-new, color-inverted symbiote to emerge over his body. Dubbing himself Anti-Venom, Eddie worked alongside Spider-Man to fight Venom and the other members of the Thunderbolts who were acting under director Norman Osborn's orders.
Throughout the remaining issues of the New Ways to Die storyline, it's revealed that Eddie's new symbiote granted him many of the same abilities he had had as Venom, along with a whole slew of new powers. Most notably, Eddie gained a tremendous healing factor with the ability to cure any sort of disease or impurity within a person's body due to the prominent antibodies within his own system. Eddie's new skill set proved to be a blessing and a curse, depending on the situation and those involved. During his fight with Venom, his new powers proved almost fatal to the Venom symbiote, and Matt Gargan spends most of the story arc in a modified scorpion suit while the organism attempts to heal. Anti-Venom would then return sporadically during Dan Slott's run of The Amazing Spider-Man until Eddie would make the ultimate sacrifice in 2011's Spider Island. After displaying that his anti-Venom symbiote could cure the inhabitants of Manhattan that were slowly mutating into spider monsters, Eddie chose to sacrifice the symbiote in order to synthesize a cure for all those who had been infected.
He would eventually join the FBI and form the Anti-Carnage Task Force that would lead him on a crash course with the Venom symbiote. With Spider-Man's help, Eddie was able to wrest control of the symbiote from Lee Price and declare once more, "We are Venom." Eddie's been through a lot since then, learning the cosmic history behind the symbiotes and eventually rising to replace the god of symbiotes, Null, as the new King in Black, while his son Dylan has become the current main Venom. And as of the time we've done this, there's actually a really cool, what do they call it? I think it's the Venom War series. Super cool, a lot of cool stuff going on. Make sure you check that out too.
Anne Wang. Eddie Brock's ex-wife, Anne Wang, was a successful lawyer before a temporary bond with his symbiote turned her into She-Venom. Possessing the same abilities as Venom, Anne's rampages rivaled Eddie's own, and unfortunately, they took a massive toll on her mind. Traumatized by watching Eddie turn into Venom in front of her and her own experiences, the sight of Spider-Man in his old black costume sent Anne spiraling. She would eventually take her own life, plummeting from the roof of her high-rise apartment.
Normie Osborn. The child of Harry Osborn from an alternate dimension, Normie Osborn received the strangest wedding gift in the form of the Venom symbiote from his ex, Ellen, aka the Goblin Queen. Despite going on a rampage when he first bonded with it, Normie's loving nature was able to change the symbiote into a force for good. I can change her.
No, you can't.
No, you can't. He did, however, save James Rhodes, that is Rhodey War Machine, and when his new cyborg form short-circuited and joined a group of reformed supervillains, with Normie's help, the symbiote itself was able to die a hero, as it transferred to Spider-Girl and healed all of her wounds. Now in the mainstream continuity, Normie has become the Red Goblin after bonding with a fragment of the Carnage symbiote instead.
Andy Benton. Andy Benton came in contact with the Venom symbiote via Flash Thompson, but she got a little more than she had bargained for. It turns out that Flash had also transferred the Hellmark that the symbiote previously received in a battle with Blackheart. Hellmarks are damaging to symbiotes, but also give the bearer control over Hellfire and immunity to fire. Oh, and the bearer also happens to become a candidate, become a Hell Lord, like Hela or Mephisto. Andy teamed up with Agent Venom for a while before the Hellmark possessed her and turned Mania into a monster she couldn't control. Lee Price would eventually steal the symbiote from Andy while leaving her with the Hellmark. And while she was not able to bond with her symbiote again, she did help Anti-Venom take down Price, proving herself to be a capable hero even without the help of the symbiote.
Lee Price. Now, Lee Price was a former Army Ranger with nowhere left to turn once an injury forced him out of active service. He turned to a life of crime and embraced the darkness of his past. He came upon the symbiote suddenly when it saved him from being shot and, well, kind of quickly bent it to his will. Price would lose the Venom symbiote in a fight with Spider-Man and Anti-Venom, but he served no jail time on the grounds that he was being mind-controlled by the alien. Later, Price would then steal Andy Benton's symbiote and form a permanent bond with it, becoming the villainous Maniac. Maniac used his symbiote's mind control power to try and elbow his way into the biggest crime families in the world via Black Cat's operation. However, he was defeated when a sample of his blood was absorbed by Anti-Venom, giving him Anti-Maniac power boost.
Kron Stone. Kron was the villainous half-brother of Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, and he came about the symbiote by accident after being left for dead. The now mutated symbiote imbued Kron with a couple of extra powers, including acidic saliva and blood, as he set out to torture Miguel, while also not knowing that he happened to be Spider-Man. Eventually, Spider-Man would defeat Venom through the usual sonic means, but the symbiote left Kron forever changed. His body had taken on the amorphous properties of the symbiote himself.
Mac Gargan. Mac Gargan, aka the Scorpion, maintained the Venom symbiote for most of the Dark Reign era. In the middle of a mission to help kidnap Aunt May, Gargan was approached by the symbiote and eventually became addicted to its power. Despite Gargan's best attempts, he couldn't control the alien and eventually began to hallucinate it speaking to him. Gargan served as a member of the government-sanctioned Thunderbolts, which I believe there's a movie coming, and later as part of Osborn's Dark Avengers. His time with the symbiote would accidentally enable Eddie Brock to become the first Anti-Venom, as we already told you. Unfortunately, he would eventually have the symbiote ripped off his body by Carol Danvers, aka Miss Marvel, and spend some time at the raft before reclaiming his Scorpion identity. But that wouldn't be the last that Gargan would see the symbiote. As Lee Price became Maniac, he was able to reactivate trace amounts of the symbiotes in his body and transform himself into Venorpian. But the reunion was short-lived as the new Anti-Venom Flash Thompson had expunged the alien from his system.
Flash Thompson. Flash Thompson's turn as Agent Venom was probably one of the greatest superhero reimaginings in recent history.
So good.
Masterpiece. While Flash has always had a complicated relationship with Peter Parker, he's almost always been one of Spider-Man's biggest fans. Flash received a Medal of Honor in the Iraq War for rescuing his partner, but it came at a cost, both of his legs. It took some time for him to come to terms with the loss, but after the government gained control of the Venom symbiote, Flash was given another chance to be a hero as part of Project Rebirth 2.0.
The symbiote would take the form of special ops armor, as opposed to its more monstrous form that we're really kind of used to. Its amorphous nature allowed Flash to carry multiple types of ammunition, gear, all kinds of stuff within it that could be augmented by the alien. Flash would spend time with the Secret Avengers, the Thunderbolts, and the Guardians of the Galaxy before losing the symbiote and falling into a deep depression. But luckily for Flash, he still had a connection to the symbiote, and when he came into contact with the Anti-Venom serum created by Alchemax, it transformed him into Agent Anti-Venom, an identity he still maintains.
If you guys like what you guys saw here, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, come back for more. We're releasing plenty of these. You can find us all over the internet at Brothers in Gaming. Peace out.
I'm dead inside.